Hey guys, what's up? It's TheThirdKnight here and welcome to a new video. Basically, I had a few points that I wanted to share with you guys with regard to the evolution of combat. And I don't really want to be negative about the evolution of combat. I'll definitely be as hopeful and as positive as possible, although it does sound a lot like some parts of it are not yet ready for launch, which is a bit concerning. So I pretty much read through the entire FAQ for the evolution of combat, which Jagex pretty much linked everyone to when they announced that it would be launched by the 20th, on the 20th of November this month. And yeah, there was just a few points that just seemed a bit odd to me. Now basically most of it was down near the bottom because they did go through a lot of basic sort of stuff. And I also wrote some stuff down. So yeah, basically I'll just start from the top and scroll down and try to be as brief as possible. But there are a few things I've written down so that I can highlight that. The first thing is Karasi is going to be stronger than a Vine Whip. So it's going to have, a Whip Vine. It's going to have better stats than a Whip Vine, because that's Jagex's substitute for getting rid of the Karasi's special attack. So yeah, good fight with Vine Whip prices. So I sort of think that could have been done a bit better, but you know, I guess that's what's going to happen. So it's no longer going to be worth going to the mutated Jadinko guards or whatever they're called to get Vine Whips, because they'll probably be crashing massively, because it's not that hard to complete the quest to get Karasi. And yeah, so that's just like a bunch of content that Jagex has released, like the new Slayer monster, the mutated Jadinkos or whatever, which will probably not be used very much at all, considering they take ages to kill and stuff, and the only good drop is the Vine Whip, and that's currently worth a fair bit in the game, but it'll probably drop significantly. Anyway, I just thought they could have added like some unique ability to Karasi whenever you use it for the evolution of combat. But that's fairly minor compared to a lot of the other stuff. One thing that I've found to be something that is the biggest concern with the evolution of combat is how Jagex are basically modifying existing content and bringing it to a level that made it more difficult than before. And I sort of think that that's probably going to make people the most annoyed out of majority of the update, because you know, you go say Bandos, you go Corporal Beast or something, and you expect to be able to do it, kill it as you have been for the past amount of time, and all of a sudden it's increased its strength and everything. So that might annoy people, I think, a fair bit, because you know, they'll go to do the things they usually do and it won't be as easy to do. So here's a question in the FAQ which basically states that the Corporal Beast is going to be like harder. I'll just read it out. Is the way the Corporal Beast drains prayer right now intentional? It's nearly impossible to solo, which was not the case before. And Jagex basically responded in saying the Corp Beast should ideally not be soloable. Of course, there are those that will have the skill to do so, but it shouldn't be something that just anybody can do. The prayer drain on initial beta release was pretty insane. We have since nerfed this, but yeah, they basically just talk about that for a bit more. But that's to me, that looks like they're bringing down like something that has been like, you know, existing content like the Corporal Beast, which people have been, you know, enjoying and soloing and stuff for a fair while now, and they're going to make that a lot more difficult, which seems like that's going to sort of annoy a few people anyway. But moving on, I'll just have a bit of a read. Yeah, so basically, like, things people previously did in PvP and PvM and stuff seems to be a bit more difficult, and yeah, Corporal Beast was an example of that. That's also related to current equipment such as Bandos and Dragon Claws. So for example, you have Bandos Chestplate and Dragon Claws. At the moment, like, you know, both those items are used by a huge amount of players for PvM and even like player versus player. But when the evolution of combat is launched based on current information, those items will be a lot less useful. So basically, Bandos will have no strength bonus, and Dragon Claws will have no sort of unique ability. They won't have any special bar or anything. So pretty much these like 10 mil, 12 mil items are just going to drop down to like probably more around, I don't know how much they're going to drop by, but they're going to drop significantly, and they're not going to be as worth having in the evolution of combat as they have been in the current game. So stuff like that, I think that they could have handled that a bit better. Now I'm saying a lot of this stuff now. Keep in mind that a lot of this stuff might be changed before it gets launched, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's being fixed. So that's just another point that I wanted to make. Yeah, so it seems like stuff like that, like not even like Bandos and Dragon Claws, like it's the same for a lot of weapons with special attack currently. It seems like a lot of that could be patched fairly easily by adding in like a unique ability for the weapon, which, you know, makes it worth having. So like, you know, Dragon Dagger has some sort of unique ability like it does now, rather than just completely nerfing it, because who in all honesty is going to use a Dragon Dagger when they could use something else like a Dragon Scimitar or something, which is clearly better. There's no reason to use a Dragon Dagger. I mean, you can't use it in PvP anymore, so yeah. But I think I've sort of made that point now. So there was also another question somewhere in here about equipment and items. I'm just going to scroll down, try and find it. Okay, here we go. Are you going to give stats to items like Berserker Helms, etc.? So and then Jagex basically responded saying anything that hasn't been given stats will be in due time. And just by reading the answer, you can, it says in due time. It didn't actually say like on the launch of the Evolution of Combat. So I mean, they might be doing all of that by the launch of the Evolution of Combat, and they, like, hopefully they will be, but that's not like a definitive answer, and they really need to do that by the launch of it, because a lot of people do actually use Berserker Helms. Like, I know a lot of people in PvP and stuff, they use that. Obviously it's all getting reworked, but I'm sure there'll still be a bunch of people who want to use their Berserker Helms, and if that's not ready by the launch of the Evolution of Combat, you know, what will those people use? So it just seems a bit odd that, considering a lot of people may want to use the item, and if it's not actually going to be ready for launch, then like, why are they having the launch so soon? There was also another question about here asking about defenders. I'll just try and find it. Okay, so what do defenders do now? Are they useless? And Jagex basically say they probably need some love. At the moment they don't do a lot. So that didn't really answer much other than confirming that they're useless in the Evolution of Combat. And then they also said they currently act as an offhand weapon that provides half the armor and life bonus of a shield and half the damage of a weapon of its tier. So that's just like another thing that just seems a bit sort of odd, because at the moment Dragon Defenders and stuff get used stacks, and I mean I don't really mind, like I'm not too fussed if they completely nerf that, because but I know like maybe other people will be, because it does take a little while to get that, but at the moment I'm not too fussed. But it just seems a bit odd how they don't have any sort of a plan for that yet, considering they're going to be launching this very soon. So yeah, that's just another thing. There was another comment here somewhere, another question about summoning and summoning familiars. Okay, so when attacking with any familiar which uses melee attacks, the hits won't go higher than 110, in brackets Iron/Steel Titan. By the way, Iron/Steel Titan hit 200s at the moment, so that's sort of why that question's there. And then it says, will this get fixed? And Jagex responded by saying, summoning is due its own rework in the future. We hope to address familiars and the skill itself as part of that update. Now that also like seems a bit sort of a strange answer, because it says that Jagex say that they want to update summoning and rework it in the future, but they don't actually say like when that's going to actually happen. So that sort of needs to happen around the launch of the Evolution of Combat. So it, like, by that answer doesn't sound particularly great, because if you're currently using like Steel Titans and stuff, and I'm not just saying this because I have the ability to use it, like I know a lot of other people who currently use familiars and stuff like that. You're gonna want to use that like they might want to use that for bossing a fair bit. They might want to, you know, log in, do some bossing and stuff. And if they can't, you know, use their familiar as effectively as before because of the Evolution of Combat, then that's just another thing that sort of needs a bit more time. And I don't see why. Maybe Jagex could take a bit longer with that and make sure that's all sorted out. Not to mention when the Evolution of Combat is actually launched, I'm sure there'll probably be a bunch of like bugs and stuff that they'll have to fix, just because there'll be a lot of people playing that. And so stuff like new updates for, say, summoning and that getting reworked might be pushed back a bit. So I think that's sort of a fairly important thing. Like that's that's pretty much the entire summoning skill. So hopefully they have that all sorted out and ready for the evolution of combat, or very soon afterwards if there's a big problem with that. And there was a final question here, which is on page 2. These are just like the main sort of questions I read and sort of was wondering a bit about. Here it says, are you confident that the evolution of combat will be successful? Have you got to the point of no return? So basically they're asking, is it actually worth doing this? This is like sort of the only option RuneScape has to update their combat to make it last for a future 10 years. And basically Jagex have said, we really do believe that it's the best thing for RuneScape, not only for the existing players, but also to ensure that the game is still here for another 10 years and another 200 million accounts. After all, none of us want the game to die. Okay, firstly, I think that Jagex's answer is like a bit sort of, I don't know, I think that they sort of need to hurry up and realize that 150, like at least 150 out of those 200 million accounts are probably bot accounts. Like, I think that's fairly general knowledge, and I think that was like a huge proportion of the actual community was saying, like when they actually did reach the milestone of 200 million accounts. I think it's really, like, it's actually fairly arrogant that they haven't really explained to players and like admitted that, you know, 200 million accounts that they currently have are not actually all player accounts that have been made by actual players. Most of them have probably been made by macroing programs and stuff like that. So I think that, yeah, it's a bit arrogant of them to not admit that, and then just to go ahead and say that they want the game around for another 10 years and another 200 million accounts. That just sounds a bit negative, because I know as a player at the moment that I do not want another 200 million accounts to be around, because most of them being bots, I want less bots in the game. So hopefully there's not another 200 million accounts, and I think a lot of players will be hoping for that. It would be amazing if there was another 200 million accounts made by normal players. That would be absolutely insane. That RS would be doing absolutely like crazy good. But yeah, I think that they sort of answered that a bit arrogantly. They really need to hurry up and admit that they don't actually have that many accounts made by real players. But yeah, I don't want to be like too negative or anything on them for that, but it is sort of true, and I think a lot of players would probably agree with me with that. But yeah, basically in conclusion, it seems to me that after reading through their frequently asked questions that they've set up for us, and listening to players, as well as going through the tutorial on the evolution of combat and playing the evolution of combat, that it sort of does need a lot more time before it is yet ready to be released. And like a lot of these things, if they get fixed up by the 20th of November, that's like really good. But if they're not like ready for launch, I think that that could make a lot of players fairly angry, and you know, a lot of the game would be unplayable, or at least it would be a lot less playable than it currently is, which is probably not something that you want when you're trying to upgrade the current system from that sort of perspective. But then again, I'm just a player, and yeah, I don't work for Jagex or anything like that, so they probably have all these things planned for, but we'll just have to wait and see, because they are Jagex and we have seen past updates and stuff by them. But I definitely do agree with Jagex for sure that the RS combat does definitely need a rework, because yeah, it does. There are a lot of things that actually do require a rework with the RS combat, but so far I think that they've rushed it way too much, and there's a huge amount of stuff that they could be doing differently. So I'm just gonna hope for the best, and yeah, go at it with a positive attitude. Hopefully you guys can do that as much as possible as well, and yeah, give it a fair go. But yeah, I think that's really it. I think I've basically said there is everything that I made out to say. Yeah, thanks very much for watching. Leave your thoughts and stuff in the comments. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about this. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for episode 8 of the Road to Max RuneScape.